Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today is a very special day. Today I woke up, opened up my YouTube studio, and it said to me, "Congratulations on 6 years on YouTube." Well, I just want to say that I owe this to each and every one of you who listens here on a daily basis. Without you, there would be no Karma Stories. And there would have been no Karma Comment Chameleon in the first place. So my hat's off to you for sticking with me for 6 years, and here's to the next 6. Alright, today I have 5 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Sad Codman. You want me to clean the office exactly like that? Alright, I'll do it. I work as an office cleaner for a small company. My job description is pretty straightforward, but there's one manager who insists on giving very specific instructions on how she wants the office cleaned. I'm used to a little guidance, but this manager, let's call her Karen, has taken it to a whole new level. One day, Karen gives me a very detailed list of things she wants done during my shift. One item stood out: clean the kitchen counters with the exact brand of cleaner in the back storage room. No other cleaner will do. Okay, no big deal. I've cleaned the office plenty of times, but this was the first time I'd been given such a specific request. So I go back to the storage room and grab the cleaner she mentioned. No problem. But then I notice something odd. The cleaner she wants me to use is way past its expiration date and smells like chemicals that shouldn't even be used in an office. I'm talking a strong, toxic smell that could easily knock out a small animal. I thought about going to her and mentioning the expired cleaner, but then remembered her exact words: "No other cleaner will do." So I decided to follow her instructions exactly, despite the potential risk of making the kitchen smell like a hazardous waste site. I started cleaning the counters, and the smell filled the whole office. Employees walking by covered their noses and commented on how bad it smelled. One even asked if there had been a chemical spill. But I didn't stop. I just kept cleaning the way Karen had instructed. The smell was unbearable, and people were starting to get visibly irritated, but I just kept wiping down those counters, making sure I was using the exact brand of cleaner. Finally, Karen came out of her office, saw the situation, and took a deep breath. "What is that smell?" she asked, coughing a little. I calmly said, "Well, you asked for the counters to be cleaned with the exact brand of cleaner in the back storage room, and that's what I used." She went completely silent and then muttered something about being more specific next time before quickly retreating to her office. I just stood there, watching the employees scramble to open windows and air out the office. I knew I'd followed the instructions exactly, and if she wanted to be that specific about the cleaner, well, that's her problem. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Dinko from the North. It says, "How long did it take for the stench to die down?" OP responded and said, "Took a few hours for it to die down completely, but it was mostly gone in maybe half an hour." Another commenter down below called Georgie Keith said, "Seems like you missed an opportunity to be a human adult here. Had you approached her and asked, 'Are you sure you want me to use this specific thing? It's expired and smells nasty,' she would have agreed, let you clean using your preferred method and materials, and trusted you to make decisions on your own going forward. Instead, she now probably thinks you're a robot lacking common sense that can't be trusted on their own and needs constant supervision and guidance." So I can see where OP thinks that they maliciously complied with what the boss wanted, but I can also see the point of a whole bunch of commenters underneath this story that said this was tremendously stupid of OP, because that chemical smell being that strong could have caused severe respiratory distress to somebody in that office. I think if this were me, upon first smell, I would take that bottle right back to the person who told me to use it, make sure that was the one they wanted to use, and then have them put it in writing, so that all of the liability fell on them and not on you. This story comes to us from Hot Independent 1683. Want me to load the dishwasher that's full? No problem. So this happened a few years ago when I was working at a warehouse and my sister was still in high school. I would wake up early in the morning, about 5:30 a.m., to get my lunch packed, get a shower, and also get my coworker since we carpool. My sister, she did have to wake up early too, but she got home earlier than I did, and we both had to do the dishes. It was agreed that she would unload the dishwasher, and I had to load it, and if the other dishes didn't fit, I would have to hand wash. The problem was that a lot of the time in the morning, I didn't have time to load it. My sister called me out on it and called me lazy for it. So my mom intervenes and tells her to calm down. We will just move the time to the evening so she can unload in the morning. After that, I would get home around 7:30 to 8 p.m. and I would load the dishwasher. But there were many times when my sister didn't unload it in the morning and she was there longer than I was. So I called her out on it, and her excuse was, I have homework to do, so I couldn't do it. Turns out she was actually just talking to her boyfriend or talking to her friends on Instagram. I got tired of it pretty quickly, especially given the fact that she called me lazy for not getting the dishes done when I was waiting for her to unload the dishwasher. So she told me I just needed to step up and do the dishes myself. Cue Malicious Compliance. I told my mom what she was doing, and we both came to the conclusion that she was trying everything she could to get out of doing the dishes. I told her my plan, and she approved of it. I did unload the dishwasher to load it, but I put all the dishes that were in the dishwasher onto the drying mats instead. I also made sure to stack the dishes in different ways to make it easier to fit more, but had zero organization with it. I did this all before she woke up. By the time she woke up, she saw me loading the dishwasher, and she was smiling that I was doing my job. But then, she got angry once she saw the tall pile of dishes put on just 2 drying mats. She started to yell and scream, which not only woke up our mom, but also our stepfather, who could sleep through anything. And they both agreed that I did my job and was loading the dishwasher. She just needed to put away the dishes. She tried to argue, but I told her, hey, I'm just doing my job, and you agreed that I am to load the dishwasher, and you unload the dishwasher. I can't help it that the dishes were in my way of loading it. She was fuming but couldn't argue about it. She just gave me the death glare while she took a bowl that was on top of a plate, unstacked it, and put it away, and then got the same plate that was under the bowl. She also had to get the silverware out from the Tupperware containers and had to separate the spoons from the forks and knives. She was still unloading when I was heading out to work. After that, she started unloading the dishwasher in the morning, and I loaded it in the evening. OP added an edit down at the bottom. It says, edit, just so you guys know, yes, we have tried punishing her in the past, like taking away phone privileges to the point where the line was cancelled, car privileges and gas card privileges, but nothing worked. So I was honestly surprised that this worked, probably due to the fact that she knew I could do that again, and I would have kept doing it too. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Furky234. It says, why she didn't break down the pile on the counter to sort everything into their own pile, I'll never know. She made so much more work for herself by doing it one by one. OP responded and said, she did make so much work for herself. Why she didn't organize them, I don't know. Maybe she wanted me to feel guilty for making the process more difficult, but I gave 0 Fs that day. Another commenter down below called Photoburger said, I would unplug the dishwasher and make them do it the old-fashioned way for a few weeks. I think the best way to deal with this one in the first place is to have a schedule that swaps back and forth every week, so that one week you're loading the dishwasher, the next week you're unloading the dishwasher. It kind of makes me wonder why people aren't loading the dishwasher after they use the dishes in the first place. I mean, they can sit in there until somebody runs it when it's full, right? So why don't they just pop them all in as they go? This story comes to us from Captain Maxius. Outrank doesn't mean outknow. The other day, my nephew was talking about joining the military, and it reminded me of this incident from my Air Force days about 20 years ago. For a little background, when two people have the same rank, you use the date of rank, DOR, which is the date your new rank became effective, to determine who outranks who. So if one person gets the rank in April and the other in August, then April outranks August. Additionally, people who did time in JROTC, Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, in high school would be able to be immediately promoted to Airman First Class, E3 or A1C, upon completion of basic training. Those who did not and enlisted started at Airman Basic E1, which is what I did. Fast forward 2 years and I'm a recently promoted A1C working as a munitions technician and had been at my current duty station for over a year. In that time, I had seen and done every munition operation that my shop did and knew what to do when the equipment decided to not cooperate. A month prior, 2 fresh airmen from basic and tech school arrived, and one of them, who we will call Bob, was sporting A1C stripes. One day, our sergeant orders the 3 of us to process a UALS, Universal Ammunition Loading System. Basically, this is just a big ammunition cylinder on wheels that is used to load the bullets into the guns on the fighter jets. Think Top Gun when they switch to guns. To do this, you attach the head of the UALS to a table that consisted of a metal tray that fed into a little conveyor system that had slots that each bullet fell into, which then fed into corresponding slots in the UALS. The whole thing is run on pneumatics that controlled the speed of the conveyor, and the more you squeezed the trigger, the faster it went. So before we start the operation, Bob says that he is in charge because he outranks me. I shrug my shoulders and basically say, whatever, and we get to work with me controlling the airgun. We get into a pretty steady rhythm with them loading the ammo into the tray, and it is feeding nicely into the UALS. At some point, Bob gets cocky and orders me to speed up. Now, the UALS has this quirk that it does not like to be ran at full speed, or it will jam. When this happens, all you have to do is detach the UALS head and reattach it, making sure this teeny tiny pin is in place. If you don't, then no matter how many times you take it off and put it back, it will still be jammed. Of course, seeing that I have done this exact operation countless times before, I knew this, but Bob was in charge, so away we go. As you can expect, the whole thing jams pretty quickly, and Bob and the other guy are confused why they can't get it running. I just sit there quietly waiting for them. As it goes, what should have been a 15-minute operation takes almost an hour. Our sergeant enters the bay and is surprised that we have not finished yet and decides to investigate. Bob tells him that the machine is jammed and we are trying to fix it. The sergeant glances at me and I simply say, Bob said he was in charge because he outranked me. The sergeant gets a half smirk, which Bob didn't see, because he knows I know how to fix it. He turns to Bob and says, well, if you're in charge, then it's your responsibility. Bob gets flustered and basically tries to backpedal. The sergeant says, well, did you ask everyone on your team? He of course means me, and when Bob shakes his head, he turns to me and says, OP, do you know how to fix it? I immediately say, yes sir, and proceed to take 10 seconds to fix the issue and get it running smoothly. Bob, understandably, is subdued, and the sergeant orders us to finish up and places me in charge, but not before telling Bob, outrank doesn't mean outknow. The sergeant leaves, and 5 minutes later, we finish. From that day on, Bob never pulled rank on me again. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Trogdor HD. It says, great story. Good leaders learn to say, hey, you know this procedure, right? Mind taking the lead? Then authority and experience are clearly defined and recognized, and the job gets done safely. Alright, I'm not gonna even begin to pretend that I know how military stuff works, even though I live in the town with Canada's largest Air Force base. I don't work there, so I don't know how that goes. But if somebody's at the same level at you and outranks you by just a couple of months, do you really have to listen to exactly what they say, snap right in line, and not give your opinion? Someone comment down below and let me know exactly how that works, because I have no clue. This story comes to us from Technically Can't 5083. Notify you for every report? Have fun waking up 50 times a night? I saw the previous military post and decided to share my own military malicious compliance story. This story isn't about the US military, but I will use US Army terms. Some background. I spent most of my military service in a Communications Command and Control Center, CC for short, which isn't as glorious as it sounds. It was mostly emails and Excel. Our CC was relatively high in the command chain. We were more big picture, managing the operability of communication systems across the whole military. The ones actually doing the work in the CC are enlisted soldiers, but because the work was relatively important, The commander of the CC was always an officer. At the time of this story, I was an E3 enlisted soldier 3rd rank. I had a lot of time and experience on the job. One day, we got a new commander, an O1 fresh out of officer school. She had a really crappy, "I'm an officer and you must respect me" attitude. I had more time than her in the army, I was also older, and my work involved interacting with officers with much higher ranks than her. So I couldn't give a crap, but I tried playing nice. Our work at the CC had a pretty normal procedure. We'd get some report, say maintenance A starting, something like that would usually be filed away immediately because we knew about it ahead and they usually didn't affect anything. A report like someone dug through a fiber optic cable and a whole post lost internet connection would usually lead us making some phone calls, trying to understand if there are backups, who could fix it and when, and lastly, when we had all of the relevant info, we would notify our commander. She didn't care about that procedure. She wanted to be involved and assert her control. One day, she saw a report on one of our computers that we didn't notify her about yet, so she got really angry and said, "From now on, you're to notify me about every report." Big mistake. The CC worked 24/7, but there was only one commander, so if something really important came up, we would wake her up in the middle of the night, but most stuff was kept to the morning. Well, cue Malicious Compliance. That night, the night shift woke her up about 10 times, and they were being nice. The day after, she was visibly sleep deprived. I was on the next night shift and called her for every report. Sometimes we'd get multiple a minute. She was basically doing the night shift with me. At around 5 a.m. she said, "Fine, you don't have to report everything. You know what's important and what's not." So for the conclusion, I'm gonna steal Captain Maxius's line, "Outrank doesn't mean outknow. Let your subordinates do their effing job." Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called NiceZombie356. It says, "Your story makes me wonder, although she was a little thick-headed for a couple nights, did she learn her lesson? I bet a lot of officers had a soldier educate them like you did, and eventually turned out just fine thanks to it. Signed, an officer whose soldiers taught me a lot, sometimes the hard way." OP responded and said, "Not really, she learned to let us do our job, but she was always arrogant and demanded unearned respect." In quite a few of the military stories that we've covered on this channel, new officers seem to need to be put into their place at least once so that they know where they really do stand in the hierarchy. If you have any stories about putting an officer or somebody who outranks you into their place, let me know in the comments down below on YouTube or if you're on Spotify. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, and there are now 6 years of them on Karma Stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video for 6 more years of engaging Reddit content. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.